starting a business is one thing. Scaling it to 7 figures of income a year and beyond is an entirely different thing. The world will tell you to push harder, just do more of what you're doing, but eventually you'll tap out. So there's got to be something different to reach those numbers. And the reality is it's not just actions. It starts with different mindsets. And so in today's episode, what I want to do is unpack 7 mindsets that I've curated over the last 14 years. I figured out what did it take for me to get to 7 figures a year in income. 7 mindset shifts that are important for you to make in order to get over that hump, whether 7 figures is the goal or multi-6 or 8 figures, whatever it is. These are 7 growth mindsets that I've stumbled across, fought for, and have slowly figured out. I want to share them with you today. Let's discuss. All right, friend, welcome back to the Graham Cochran Show. It is a very special episode because I actually have a sidekick today. My lovely bride, Shay, is on the show with us today. Yes, this is a special episode for 2 reasons. 1, because I don't normally have my wife on. She's been on a couple times before. But 2, because we have a special announcement to make before we jump into the 7 mindset shifts. And Shay has a lot to say about those as well because she has been running a multi-6-figure in business for years and has had another take on these shifts because her business is different than mine. So that's why I wanted to bring her in on this. But before we jump in, 2 huge announcements and they're related. 1, Shay and I are dropping and launching today a brand new podcast. That is right. I'm doing another podcast, and this time I'm doing it with my wife. So this one's not going away, but I wanted to add more to my plate. This is something Shay and I have been wanting to do for a couple of years now, is to collaborate on content, specifically a podcast, and it is called the Family Goals Podcast, and it is live as of right now. You can go to familygoalspodcast.com. You can check it out on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to consume your podcast. It's there. We have 5 episodes up there for you to check out immediately. And this is going to be a show all about parenting, marriage, family culture, work, money, you name it. No matter how big or small your family is, Shay and I are going to go at it every single week and bring you something really, really helpful to try to help you and your family out. So that's the big announcement, that it's live. You can go check it out, and you should. But to incentivize you to go check out the show and to help maybe get a little bit of boost so other people can see what we're doing, we are doing a giveaway this week. And if it's in the future and you missed it, I'm sorry you missed it. But if you're checking this live, we want to give away $2,000 towards a family vacation for you. So if you want to be entered to win $2,000 towards your next family vacation, all you have to do is check it out at my Instagram at the Graham Cochran or Shay's Instagram at Shay Cochran for all the giveaway details there. So just check us out on Insta. Even if you don't do Instagram, the rules are there. Very simple. You have till Friday to enter to win the $2,000 family vacation giveaway. And either way, you should check out the show. We're really excited about it. Anything else you want to say about the show, babe?
No, but we are really excited, and I'm just happy to be getting it out there. I'm having to re-practice the whole go ugly early with starting a new venture. It's been a while since I've started something from scratch, and all those old mindsets flood in where you can just obsess over the little things. So we're happy to get it out into the world and excited to hear, feedback, see what you guys think.
Yes, it's fun, and if you like it, we'll keep doing it. If you don't like it, we'll stop because it's time-consuming. So we're pumped. So, okay, I want to get into the conversation, Shay. I've got these 7 mindsets, and they're ones that I think you and I both share, although I do think we have different experiences with our different businesses. And so, full disclosure, Shay, she's the CEO and founder of Elevate Visuals. It's a stock photography and stock video subscription product for female entrepreneurs. It's amazing. It's been around for a long time, and as we get into some of these shifts, you're going to hear a little bit more, I think, context as to why that longevity in the business is part of some of the things we've learned, and not everything has stayed the same. Even the name of the company hasn't always been that name, so we'll get into some of that in a minute. But Shay has just a different take on business because her business is run different than mine, and she's got a different interaction with team than I do. And so I think the two of us together will be able to unpack these mindsets and give you some fresh perspectives no matter where your business is. And so I thought we would just run through them, babe, one at a time. I'll give my take, and I'll toss it to you, see what you have to say. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I think the number one shift you have to make, and this is what I'm trying to always remember myself, it's very hard, but it's what I usually try to coach people with, is to play the long game, not the short game. And so what that means is everybody is living in the short game because That's just human nature. We want results. We want it now. So we're asking the wrong questions a lot of times of what's going to work to make this pop now? How can I make more money now? How can I scale now? And there are ways to scale now or make more money now, but those aren't always the ways that will keep you in business for a long time. Some of those ways are frankly, shady, and they're actually not very ethical, and they'll come back to bite you in the butt. I've made some of those mistakes in the past. I've partnered with affiliate partners very quickly without doing my due diligence because they said they had a killer product that would complement my products and make me a ton of money, and I saw the affiliate splits, and I just sent some emails out to my list promoting a thing, made me money, and then the guy didn't fulfill on the product, and everyone started to complain to me, and I had to refund money that wasn't even mine, and my name was tarnished a little bit.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Affiliate gate.
Yes, affiliate gate. Yes, I've done a lot of good things with affiliate income. That was a big mistake because I saw dollar signs and it looked easy. So yeah, we all make mistakes in the short term. But here's the thing: the problem with playing the short game is that it actually sets your business up to fail. Just even the structure and the function of your business. So I like to think, how could I play the long game, and how, if I thought about 10 to 20 years of a business as opposed to the next 2 to 3, how would that change the way I set up my business, the way I show up to work? And the big 3 S's I think about is like, what is sustainable, what is scalable, and what is satisfying? Because if it's not sustainable, you'll burn out. Mm-hmm. If it's not scalable, you'll do a lot of hard work and just keep hitting a ceiling. And you're like, well, what am I doing? Why isn't it working? It's probably the way you built the business. And if it's not satisfying, you'll quit, not from burnout, but because you're just like, I don't enjoy this anymore. And you'll resent the thing you built, even if it's making you money. And this happens more often than not. That's why you see a lot of, all 3 of these are why you see a lot of YouTubers and content creators quitting right now, because their business model wasn't sustainable. It wasn't scalable, although they hit a lot of money. It hit its ceilings, and it wasn't satisfying. They were doing the content everybody wanted them to do, not what they wanted to do or what they initially started to do. Yeah. And so they burned out. So play the long game, not the short game. And it's really a mental exercise of thinking about, if I were going to stay in this business for the next 10 to 20 years, what would I do differently? What would I have to do differently to stay in it long enough?
Yeah, what I love, and kind of my nuanced take on that, is to build the business that you want to be running in the next season of life. So if you're single right now and you're not married yet, so you don't mind working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, working, till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe that works for you now, but is that going to work for you when you're married? If you're married, what's the parameters that you want around work for when you have children? Do you want to be able to just work a 9 to 5? Do you want to work 5 days a week, or do you want to work less than that? Just instead of building the business that works for you today, because you may be willing to sacrifice a lot today, why not just go ahead and think about the type of business that you're going to want to run in your next season of life, and go ahead and build that business? Because experientially, Graham, you and I both know the mindset is, well, I'm just going to hustle now and I'll kind of fix it later so that I don't have to do as much later. But it's very, very hard to do that, especially depending on your business model and how integral you are to the brand, how owner-centric of a brand or owner-centric of a team you have. It is very hard to make those shifts much farther down the road. So I'm just saying, go ahead and build that business now before you get to that season of life. But love that mental shift, and that's just kind of my way of thinking about it. Maybe because as a woman, as a mom, our seasons of family and life really do impact me. I'm not just going to a 9 to 5 every single day. My responsibilities are shifting and changing based on where we're at in life. So especially maybe impactful for women. But I just love, go ahead and build that business now.
Yeah, I love it. And full disclosure, that might mean you hit your goals a little slower because you're working hard to build that foundation of the business that will sustain it. Mm-hmm. And I know when I started my business, it started very slow, but the peers that I had, because I was in a mini mastermind in the early days of the recording revolution, they were trying to run hard, and they've all died off. They died off within a year or two. So it's sort of that tortoise and the hare line, right? Like Dave Ramsey always jokes that the best business book he ever read was The Tortoise and the Hare. There is something about slow and steady wins the race, and it's not sexy at the beginning, but I love thinking about the next season. So that's the shift number 1. Shift number 2 is create space. And I love this line from Rich Litvin, one of the coaches that I was working with the last couple years. He says, space is where miracles happen. And so what he was describing is, you can't just fill your week You can't fill your month with just work all the time. You need to have blocks that are intentionally blocked off where there's nothing happening so that you can think, so that you can ideate. And not every thinking or blank space in your calendar is going to be very productive, but that's the only place where these miracles of ideas and insights and creativity happen. And his point, like if you're just working all the time, you're never going to create miracles in your business. Mm-hmm. So the practical application is make some time for stillness, solitude, and thinking. And this can look like a lot of different ways. So this could be, hey, make part of your morning routine like time to think, like when it's quiet and you've had some coffee and once you wake up, like give yourself 20 minutes of just like free thinking time where you just write down ideas and then you move on. I have friends that block off half of their Wednesday or 2 hours on their Wednesday, no meetings, no calls, and that's their thinking block. Like they've already been productive for a couple days. They're, it's that midweek, like I'm a little burned out, so then they break and they go do very different work where they just think about offers or ideas or like if I were going to blow up my business and start over, what would I do differently? Or they just let themselves think. And that is work. It just doesn't look like it's not busybody work, but that's the deepest work you could do. And no one's going to come and make you do that. You have to have the discipline to find some time. So that could also be seasons where you go on a little trip or like a planning getaway where you're physically in a different space and it's like compounded over like for the weekend, I'm going to just think and have some silence, solitude. So you have a lot of creativity and freedom here, but I love this. This is kind of the space is where I've come up with ideas for books, ideas for courses that I wouldn't have tried. Sometimes it's where I've had my best content ideas. I've even mapped out a whole year's worth of content for my brand on a weekend retreat where like I was having no ideas for my content. And then you sit down in a hotel for 2 days and all of a sudden I've got 50 episode ideas that came to me because I created some space to think, and that's where the miracles happen. So create space. And I know, Shay, you and I are a little bit different in terms of how we like to think. Like I think a lot and you like to do a lot. And so, but I think you probably have a take on this. What's your take on creating space?
Practically when we were doing this, the most regularly we were doing at least once a year. You would go for your day away, kind of planning day away, and I would go for a separate planning day away. And at a bare minimum, we maybe took one of those a year. I think we got a little better when we were doing it at least twice a year. And we're going to do that again this year. So this summer, we already have on the calendar that Graham's going to get away for a day or two. I'm going to get away for a day or two for that. Honestly, if I could go back in time, we were broke. That's why we didn't do it more often, that we couldn't afford that many hotel stays. But I think at a minimum, it really should probably be once a quarter. If you feel like you just can't build it into your week, which I think there's a lot of argument. I'm going to argue all day for there needing to be stillness and solitude as a part of your every single day. But if we're just talking about maybe carving out some big picture time that you're really just dedicating to strategic thinking, big picture thinking, I think at the very least it needs to be quarterly. And I wish that I had done that because you're really just, when you're in it, I don't know that I make any really brilliant decisions on the fly when I'm just in the weeds of day-to-day work life. I think I have my best ideas in the morning when I'm kind of having some stillness and quiet time, when I'm out taking a walk or something. I mean, you do a lot of your processing out on these long walks. I have to think with a pen and paper in my hand. I can't just wander and think, fluid thoughts. I have to do it with, a lot of paper and pens and a computer in front of me. So yeah, we're different in that. But I think bottom line, if I could go back, I would say at the very minimum, create that space once a quarter. But I love what you said actually about setting aside an afternoon to be kind of your strategic thinking afternoon. I just think what's hard for most entrepreneurs, if you put it in the middle of your week, I wonder if they'll do it, or if they're just going to be like, oh, I just got to get to that one more thing. If I can just fire off this thing, if I could just, then I'll get to it. And so I fear that people just won't get to it. But the more you can bake in that type of time away, the better. And that's why you get people that say they get their best ideas in the shower. Why? Because they're not sitting at their desk. They're just in a different environment. They've cleared just a little bit of mental space. They're taking a shower, and then that's when they have their genius ideas. So stillness, solitude, and thinking, I'm for that every day. You and I both start our morning with that every single day. So that's a part of our lives all the time. But if I could go back and rebuild the businesses from scratch, I would probably have allocated more time for that, at least at a minimum quarterly, some solid time away.
I love it. Mental shift number 3, and this won't be a surprise to any of you who've been following me the last couple of months, is read more. And by read, I mean books. I don't mean like the back of a cereal box like I did as a kid. Read more books, and specifically read in different industries. So, right, I've said it for years. This is pretty straightforward, so you don't have to explain this too much. But the best bang for your buck for a coach is to just buy a book. Like you get someone who's taken their life's work, 20, 30, 40 years sometimes, of their lane of genius, and they put it into written form and they sell it for $25. And it's curated. It's probably better than even an hour of their time because they forget half the things. It's like they've put months into curating their best thoughts into a little book. And so if you just spent $25 and a few hours to read it, and then even if you only applied one thing from that book, it could completely change your life. And what's interesting about reading in different industries or reading like biographies, I like to read biographies, like especially people that have accomplished big things, you just realize they think differently. So even if like I'll read like Jeff Bezos's biography, The Everything Store, or Steve Jobs, or any of these guys, I don't want to build that kind of company. I don't even want to live their kind of life. I don't even agree with their lifestyle choices. But what I gain from those types of books is I get a little clue into how they think, and something about the way they think is incredibly successful. And so I want to like, eat the meat, spit out the bones kind of thing. But like, what can I learn from the way this guy built $100 million business or $1 billion company or $1 trillion company in Apple? Like there was something there, And so just reading a biography, reading a book about a different business industry, or even you can read fiction. And because you're getting in the head of a character, you can think differently because you see how that character thinks. But it's what awakens new thoughts in your brain, because your thoughts are going to just circle around the same things over and over again. And to the point of the previous thing, creating space, I almost think maybe you read more before you create space. In space, you're only going to be able to think whatever's in your head. So you need to put new things in your head to stew on, so then when you create some space, you can connect some dots, and there might be a little bit of lightning in the bottle. But reading is the fastest path to growth. And you don't have to remember it all. You don't even have to read the whole thing. You could just read a chapter of a brilliant book if that's all you have time for, and just work that chapter to the bone.
Yeah, I love that. I think it can feel very daunting to innovate within your own industry, but it's made so much easier when we think about how much there is to borrow from other industries. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. An example of that would be in the early days of transitioning from commercial photography for me, so service-based, into wanting to create more of a SaaS product. That was around the time when box subscriptions were getting really popular, like gift box subscriptions or athleisure box subscriptions, dog food box subscriptions. Like we kind of saw that boom of box subscriptions that you'd get sent to your house. And so I'm in the photography industry, but it got me thinking, could we apply that same box subscription model to digital imagery? And that's where, one of the original iterations, second iteration of my business was the SC stock box, where we would just curate 30 images, digital images, and we would send them to you. And it was actually a terrible idea. At the end of the day, for a million reasons, it made so much sense to people and it took off, but then everyone, myself included, realized that probably wasn't the iteration that was going to work long term. But I borrowed that from these box subscription industries, and it actually worked for a minute. And if nothing else, it was a catalyst for, like maybe that model's not exactly right because people need to be able to pick out their own images, but I kind of was able to iterate from there. So pulling an idea from a completely different industry, adding it, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I didn't have to be a genius. I just had to kind of look around and see what's working everywhere else. What are people getting excited about, and how can I apply that to my industry? And then
that's a great example.
I'll just add my two random related thoughts. One is, here's a novel idea. Read a book and actually apply it chapter by chapter, and don't move on to another book or another person you want to learn from until you've actually actioned on what you're reading. Because the thing I see with entrepreneurs is that they just consume and consume and consume and consume and consume. You'll hear from 3 or 4 or 5 different teachers over the course of a week, maybe implement 2% of any of it, and then you move on to the next new thing. Man, we have access to so much wisdom. Like you're talking about, I'm reading 10x is better than 2x. The smartest thing I could probably do is not read 10 more books. No offense to you reading 52 books this year, but it would be that if I actually, what if I just actually held myself to implementing chapter by chapter by chapter everything that I'm reading? I mean, that's to me a novel concept. I don't think entrepreneurs are great with the follow through on what they're learning. So that's just kind of my additional 2 cents, bonus 2 cents.
100%. Yeah, no, I love it. And I tell people a lot of times who are afraid they don't know enough about a subject, whether it's like investing or starting a business, and so they're consuming more and more books or courses. I'll tell them, look, like, friend, I didn't get wealthy or successful by like knowing everything. I know a little bit and I use it a lot and apply it a lot. Like when I would learn a way to write a funnel, I would just write all my funnels that way. When I learned a way to maximize my work week, I would just apply that framework to everything every week for like 7 years instead of learning another framework. Like I just am not that creative, so I'll just take the thing that makes sense and just apply it for years until I hit a ceiling and I need something new. And so I think there's something there. So yeah, please apply what you're reading. The point to read is not just to stimulate your thoughts, but is to actually do something with it. Mindset shift number 4 is to spend more time with high performers, aka not your peers. So this is no offense to your peers. You need a peer group. They always say you need 3 types of communities or groups you're in, right? You need a peer group that are people like you so you can link arms and do life together. You need a group that's not as far along as you are. And that can be literally someone in the industry that you're mentoring, or that could be literally the lowest of low society who have the least help and just like always be serving people that don't have the opportunities you have. Like if you're saying like, I don't hang out with people that are beneath me, that doesn't make any sense. So you need the people that you're serving and like, hey, I've made it this far. Let me help pull you along to where I am. I want to mentor, help, whatever. You need your peers, yes, but I think that's where we stay because we're comfortable with our peers because they're like us and they don't challenge us. No offense. It's easy to be with them. But high performers, people that are where you want to be in whatever fill-in-the-blank industry that is. I mean, Shay and I are launching this new podcast, so that might mean people who have been married longer than you and you want to learn from them in their marriage, but it might be a little uncomfortable to have conversations with them, or people who understand money a little bit better than you do because they've been investing longer, whatever that is. But in business, if we're talking about hitting 7 figures or multi-6 or whatever the goal is, you're going to have to spend time with people that are way above your league, right? So this means getting in a group or a mastermind or hiring a coach, but get around people that challenge you, who see things you can't see because they've been places you haven't been yet. They're not perfect, but they've just gone where you haven't gone yet. And they make you feel like you're the dumbest guy or the dumbest gal in the room. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room because you're in the wrong room. You're never going to grow. You're never going to learn. And so this is not an all or nothing. This is just evaluate your relationships and evaluate the way you spend your time, evaluate the conferences you go to, evaluate the masterminds you're in, and have you outgrown that peer group and they're now not the ones that stretch you anymore. They're now like your peers because you grew. Maybe nothing wrong with them, but maybe it's indicative of how you've grown. And if you want to keep growing, you're going to have to find new people. And Shay and I did this, we've done this multiple times, but most recently a year and a half ago, we joined a new mastermind where it's 7, 8, and 9-figure Christian entrepreneurs. And we are the smallest businesses in the room. And I remember the first event I went to, it's very uncomfortable. Like, do I even belong in this room? Can I add any value in this room? Like, I don't like that feeling. I want to go find a group of people that aren't doing nearly what I'm doing, so I feel important and I feel smart and I feel like I can add value because I always like to serve and add value. But it's really, really stretched us. And I know, Shay, you've made it a conscious effort to like get around different groups of people, get around even new friends you've acquired in the last couple of years that like do think about business totally differently than you, and because it's elevated you to another place.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great, right? Like surround yourself with people that are doing better than you are or where you want to be. That sounds very logical. I think I just want to underscore how hard and uncomfortable that is in real life. I mean, the amount of insecurity that you feel, I think that's really the barrier. That's kind of going to be the first thing that you come up against is as soon as you're having coffee with somebody that you know is just miles ahead of you, years ahead of you in business, or you're in a room or at a conference with people that are just performing at such a different level than you are, know so much more than you do, I think it can just right away create so much insecurity. And we have two options there. You know, we can lean into the insecurity, or we can back away and say, now I'm just going to keep surrounding myself with my peers because we feel okay. You know, we feel a little bit challenged by our peers. Maybe they're doing some things that we aren't doing, but man, to surround yourself with people that are really light years ahead of you in whatever area you care about, there's just a certain level of humility, and not going in there then trying to prove that you deserve to be there, or trying to prove that you're running at the same pace that they are, but really going in as a student with humility. It's hard. I think it's harder than you and I both anticipated.
Yeah.
Because we thought like, oh yeah, it's great. We're gonna like surround ourselves with these people, and then we keep leaving, going like, oh man, are we supposed to be here? Like, I feel like an idiot. I don't want to open my mouth. Like, I just don't know, what do I have to contribute? So, it's been more challenging in a good way than I anticipated. But you're absolutely right. You got to spend time with people, not your peers, who think completely differently than you. I brought on an example would be the partner that I brought on with Elevate. I brought on a business partner after being a solo entrepreneur for 16 years or so now. And we're very different. We want the same end goal, but we arrive at things in a very different way. And she thinks completely differently than I do. And so that's very intriguing to me, because I know at this point in business, I've taken things kind of as far as I know how to take them. So I've got to expand my mind. I've got to learn to think differently. And so bringing her on was like really pivotal, or is currently really pivotal to me being able to not just do the same thing I've been doing that's gotten me here, but really learned the mindsets, you know, the things that we're talking about to get me to the next iteration of whatever's next.
Yep. And this is, again, another one that you just have to choose to do. And you don't have to be in the only rooms you're in are ones that are challenging, but at least get in a room with people that are doing bigger things than you. It's gonna have a huge impact.
Yeah.
Another
do you
group of
feel
people
smart, or do you want to feel like you're growing? I want to feel like I'm growing, you know,
well,
functionally I want to feel smart, but
those things war with each other, right? Because we want to feel smart, we want to feel confident, and being in those rooms doesn't give us that feeling.
Yeah.
In the short term. But this goes back to the first mindset, is in the long term, you will be more confident because you will have you'll be better than everybody else. Okay. So it's like, again, do you want short-term benefit, long-term benefit? Yeah, it all goes back to playing the long game, but that's a good point. This one is huge for I think a lot of entrepreneurs, is number 5, mental shift. Spend more time with your top customers, not your demanding bottom feeders. And I hate to be offensive, but every business has bottom feeders. These are the customers that pay the least and complain the most. And they get the most of your attention because they're the loudest. And so what happens, these are the people that comment the most on your social media feed or your YouTube video, and they complain, or I don't like this video, or they email your customer service team like, I didn't get this, or this wasn't clear, or whatever. If you connect the dots, more often than not, the rule and rather than the exception is that these are the people that have spent the least with you or not spent any money with you. They're just complaining about your free stuff, which always makes me laugh. It's worth what you paid for it. Like zero. Like what are we complaining about here? But the problem with focusing, this is my opinion, the problem with focusing on those loud customers that are your bottom feeders is that you might make decisions in your business based off of their complaining, and you'll steer the business to cater towards more people like that, not towards the people that are actually very happy with your business or have really valuable feedback to make your business better, the people that are spending a lot of money with you, who value what you have. And so if you would just spend a little bit of time and say, well, who are my top 3 customers, top 10 customers by amount of money spent or amount of years doing business with me, however you would measure it in your business, and hit them up and say, can I jump on a Zoom call with you and just see how I can serve you better? And literally take notes, do research. What have you benefited from our products? What's missing? What are we not seeing? If I could wave a magic wand and make your dreams come true with our business, what would that be for you? Like, they will love it because they already value you. They will feel appreciated, and you will get so much insight into what to do. For example, I just launched and filled a weekend mastermind retreat, high-end, high-ticket, and I knew I wanted to do it conceptually, but I reached out to some of my top customers and pitched the idea to them, not to sell it to them initially, but I was like, hey, I want to do this type of event for people like you. Here's what I'm thinking it would be. what's missing? What is this appealing to you? Would you want this? What would you pay for this? Like I literally asked them, what would you pay for this? And I got a few different answers that sort of triangulated around the price that I was thinking anyway. And it was so helpful, and they felt appreciated, and I even got a couple of them to join the actual event, and one that wants to come to another one. But the point is you can learn more about the direction of your business to scale it, to make more money by spending more time with those top customers, not the bottom feeders.
Yeah, I think one place that I see a lot of newer entrepreneurs go wrong with this is, for example, they'll put an idea for a product, for example, out on something like Instagram. I'm thinking of making a,
oh boy,
and they get lots of, oh, awesome. Yeah, cool. Do it. Blah, blah, blah. And so they think, okay, there's like a willing audience. This is something that people want. They go build the product and then they launch it, and crickets. Because the people that were commenting were not necessarily the people willing to spend money. They're just like, yeah, it means nothing to them to say, great idea. They're not having to vote with their dollars on whether or not that's an actually good idea or not. So I see it go wrong a lot there, where they just haven't done the research with the right group, the right portion of their audience that is actually likely to buy, as opposed to just Instagram, social media at large. Sure, get the opinion of everyone on Instagram, but don't go build a product having not surveyed the people who have actually spent money with you on whether or not it's a product or service that they actually want and that they would pay for, and how much would they pay, right? Because that was part of what you asked. I've seen this go really well in a company. I can't remember the industry, but it was a woman in a mastermind that I was a part of, and she used to have her team. She built a lot of her team structure around this. They had developed a series of questions that they would routinely ask, and as a part of regular, SOPs for all team members, everyone would have to spend time on the phone, face to face on a call, 15 minutes or 30 minutes with this list of top customers asking these questions. So she had people in operations had to do these interviews with their top customers. People in customer service had to do these interviews with their top customers. She, as the CEO, would do these interviews. And the way they had structured it was pretty cool. The calls were recorded and shared with the whole team. The transcripts and takeaways were shared with the whole team. But if you worked for her, you were going to spend some face-to-face time interviewing a top customers who had been with the company for a while, and then all of that would be shared. So I just loved that because it kept the CEO connected to the best customer, but it also kept everyone else on the team. No one was really completely removed from the needs of the target audience because everyone had to take a turn doing these. I think they were monthly or quarterly or something like that. I thought that was such a cool idea, and she's been wildly successful and just a very unified team with a really straightforward path. And it's because they're all having standardized conversations with that top 20% of their audience. I just thought that was fantastic. I never implemented that. That would have been a great idea if I'd implemented that. But seen it with a lot of success. And I love the heart behind it.
I love that. And the other thing you get when you interact with these top customers is you get sales copy. You get language. And the words they say, the things that seem to matter for them, like, oh, this is important to you, that's probably something I need to highlight in the sales page. And if you focus too much on the bottom feeders, they just have a different value structure. So they're going to want, they're going to be more fear-based. Well, I want tons and tons of stuff for the least amount of money. And your top customers probably just want results faster. Yeah. And so that's just powerful. If you just, especially if that lady's transcribing calls, you can just copy and paste language and implement it so your copy is more real.
One way, I'll give you one more example of this that we experienced as we were growing is that, if we listened to, say, for example, the people that were on social media making a complaint about the product, or the people on Facebook that were making a complaint about the product, we would have been sent in a million different directions. Because when I'm listening to those people, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many issues. People are so unhappy. Like, there's so many things we need to fix. And in that season, I was like, well, I want to have calls with the people that are our target, our best customers. I want to have face-to-face calls with them. And so I started hopping on calls with our kind of longest members and things like that. And it was so encouraging because they were like, no, I love your product. You're doing great. I actually wouldn't change anything. So all of a sudden, I'm like, my workload goes from we need to change everything to oh man, we're really doing a great job. And the audience that really is invested and that we're a best fit for, this product's perfect for them. And just keep keep on keeping on, like keep listening. So I could have been sent in wildly different directions
Wow.
depending on who I listened to, even within my own customer base.
It's easier to please people who are happy with your product and spending lots of money with you than to please people that are complaining and hate everything about
And
what you're doing. Like
skeptical and
skeptical, yeah. It's just more
absolutely.
that, yeah. And that's just a side note, and you could do a whole episode on this. You will never make all your customers happy. And if
For
that's
sure.
the way you're trying to, like, if you're trying to put out every fire, you're constantly running around putting out fires. You have to almost choose to live with some fire that they're
Yeah.
upset. And you know what? That there's no reality in which every customer is perfectly happy. Even the best customers of the world don't have a 100% customer satisfaction rating. I don't think that's ever existed. All right, moving on real quick. Last two. Mindset number 6. Prune your offers. Here we go. Gardening metaphor. Shay's a master gardener. Basically, be willing to kill things so that you can grow new, better things.
Absolutely.
There's that phrase in journalism, kill your darlings. Like, be willing to kill good things for better things. Like, don't fall in love with every product or every offer. And don't make fear-based decisions if you know that the product could be better or it's not the best thing for your audience, or that you need something different for yourself if you're in a service-based business or there's some service element. I shut down $180,000 a year mastermind because I needed to create more space in my life, and it ended up working out great going back to creating space because I didn't know that next year I was going to write my second book and get another book deal. So I had all this time to write and mental space, so that worked out. But it was a good product, and I was saying goodbye to my top customers. They were really sad. Some of them still are, because they're like, when are you going to open it back up again or do something similar? And when I do open up another mastermind, it'll be a little different. And I'm starting by actually doing some actual weekend events as opposed to long-term things. So I'm already playing with different offers. But I killed a really good thing with like some of my best students and customers, and guaranteed recurring revenue because I felt I needed to create new things. And I've killed lots of products. Some products, it's just crushing and there's no reason to kill it. So there's the opposite problem where you keep tweaking a thing because you think you're supposed to. I had a course that was really messy and like not in HD and like wasn't really well done, but it kept selling and everybody loved it and the testimonials kept pouring in, and I almost updated it like for 6 years in a row, and I just didn't touch it because I didn't want to ruin the magic. There was something great about it, so I just didn't touch it. But most of the time, you need to look at your offers and be willing to say what's winning, what's not so great, and is what's best for my customers and what's best for me. And no offer is perfect forever. Very few things are. So just have the guts to kill something or completely change something. And I know, Shay, like your business has been, you mentioned it a little bit about the stock box, but in a way you've pruned multiple offers. You could say pivot, you could say evolve, whatever, iterate, like, but those things don't exist anymore, but they got you to the current offer structure you have now, which is what you alluded to a little bit before, which is incredible. And it's only there because you were willing to kill something that was good to make it better.
Yeah, I mean, if people actioned on one thing from this episode, I think the highest ROI thing they could probably action on is just 80-20 your products or services and figure out the 20% that are generating the bulk of the revenue, and just be willing to say no to small amounts of revenue, whether small amounts is a 6-figure amount like you're talking about, so that you can focus your time, effort, energy, and resources on the ones that are actually really your high performers. I remember, early on in our early entrepreneurial days, we read the Pumpkin Plan. And the concept there was like, if you're willing to, you can let 20, 30 pumpkins grow on a vine and they're all going to be this big, or you can cut off all those little beautiful pumpkins and leave one, and then all the fuel, all the nutrients are going to go into that one, and you get a mega, state fair award-winning pumpkin. And so that has always stuck with me, probably because I like gardening, but the same is just so true in business. You instantly free up your time because you've taken out the 80% that was being sucked away by the products or services that you're offering that just aren't your top 20, like aren't your top 20%. You free up a ton of time. And then if you just take that same amount of time and invest in the 20%, then you're talking about 4x, 5x, 6xing your revenue doing less in a way, either doing less or working the same amount, but just focusing it on those top performers. So 100%, I think that's probably the highest ROI you could get from this podcast is if you actually were brave enough to do that. And bravery really is the key word there because, you really have to rid yourself of that scarcity mindset that I've got to collect every dollar and isn't some money better than no money. You just will never get to the next level if you're holding on to every dollar. You have to be willing to let some dollars go, whether that's an opportunity or a product or a service, to really continue to be focused and productive and see really expansive growth in the area that you really want to go big on and that has the most potential for you. So I love to see people do this. I love to do this because it's just scary and awesome, like all at the same time to do that. But it just can instantly have such a high return if you're willing to do that hard work and just be bold, be brave, and do it.
Love it. Great book recommendation. The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. He wrote Profit First, which is probably the one he became really famous for, but he'd written a lot of books before then, but that's definitely a good read. And seventh and final mental shift to reach seven figures is don't play it safe, because safe ain't safe. Some people don't struggle with this, but a lot of personalities, and I've just discovered this from just coaching tons of people, interacting with a ton of people over 14 years, that this is the most common take, is that we're really afraid that, especially if you get some success, we're a little bit more open to risk when there's nothing. We have nothing to lose. You're like, I'll try whatever. I'm throwing stuff on the wall. But once you start to get this is for you when you're already making it and you're reaching six figures and you're like, how do I get to multiply six figures? How do I get to seven? When you have something good to lose, aka a good business, then you start to play it really safe. Okay, I don't want to prune my offers. I don't want to, create space and think anymore. Like I got to keep working, got to keep the plate spinning. And you start to move from like, go create something incredible in the world and see if it works, to like protect what you have. And then you start to lock your arms around it and don't let anything go. And this is sort of like I think of the sports analogy is, playing not to lose versus playing to win. And this is coming up for me in the moment. This is if you're a football fan, but you remember like the Super Bowl a few years ago when it was the Patriots versus the Falcons, and famously Tom Brady of the Patriots, before he came to our Bucks and won us a Super Bowl, he was down 28-3 at halftime. He was losing 28-3 in the Super Bowl, and the stats are like, there's no way Tom Brady can come back. The Falcons have got this game locked up. They come back after halftime, and the punchline is Tom Brady comes back, ties up the game, gets them to overtime, and wins it in overtime. When you analyze that game, it wasn't. I mean, Tom Brady is one of the most mentally resilient people out there. That's why he wins, because he wasn't like fazed by like, there's no way we can win. He's like, okay, what do we have to do to win? We have to score on every single drive, and he just does what he has to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to take anything away from Tom Brady, but I'm more interested in what happened with the Falcons' offense and defense. They changed up their whole strategy to protect their lead. All we got to do is hold on to this lead for 30 minutes and we're Super Bowl champions. And they lost the game because of that mentality. They weren't aggressive. They weren't creative. They didn't take long shots. They just did little dink and dunks and like prevent defense and just make sure that they don't get the big score. And ironically, that allowed the Patriots to come back. And I think that's what we do in business when we're successful, is we say, okay, it's working. I'm not going to touch anything. Kind of like I said with that one little course, don't touch anything, don't try anything new. I'm not going to try new content on my YouTube channel. I'm not going to try crazy offers. I'm not going to mess with my pricing. I was coaching a client last week I don't want to mess with my pricing too much, because what if it's too expensive and nobody buys it? I'm like, how else will you know? Like, you have to try, like push the button.
What if everyone buys it? What if you increase the price and everyone buys it?
Right? There's the opposite. What if it goes well? We never think about the what ifs. Yeah. You can make a lot of money on positive what ifs instead of being afraid of the negative what ifs. So the problem is, if you play it safe and stay the same, everyone else is innovating. Everyone else is trying new things. It's not that you have to jump on every trend. Don't mishear me. Some things never change. And trends go and come and go. But don't play not to lose when you're in business. Always play to win. And winning means, how can I serve my customers better? How can I make more money than I'm making right now working less? Like that just is an efficiency question, a systems question. How can I enjoy my work more than I did last year? That's like a passion question, and like making sure it's life-giving for you. Like always be willing to innovate. Don't play it safe, because it actually isn't safe. It's the most risky thing you could do. That's the thought.
Yeah, be willing to cannibalize your own product line too. I mean, that was what I ended up doing when I went from kind of selling one-off individual imagery in the SE stock shop to creating a membership. And I thought the membership would be kind of a side product, but the risk was, what if it takes away from the people that are buying, paying $79 per image for individual images? What if I cannibalize my own product line? And I did. It eventually, within a few months, people were like, "Oh, this isn't actually what we need. The thing we've been pushing, the membership, is really what we needed." But remember, all the money's going in the same place, right? Like, don't you win either way? Even if you create something that cannibalizes another product that you have, don't you win either way? And the reality is that nothing is really going to survive if you don't iterate. I mean, I don't care what industry you're in. Over time, eventually, you will need to iterate. So don't be a dinosaur, just trying to keep things the way they are and afraid of losing what you've built. I think anytime you see this in a lot of times when entrepreneurs hit a point that their numbers are starting to go down, right? They're not seeing the revenue growth that they've seen, and they can double down to sort of protect what they've got, and they can just try to work harder, do more to try to protect what they've got, or they can say, what is this telling me about changes that are happening within the industry? What is this telling me about how can I be curious about how buyer behavior is changing? How can I be curious about maybe my product doesn't serve a need anymore? I need to consider what next need, parallel need could I meet? So I think it's when we are curious and not doing, acting out of fear, like you're saying, and we're saying, what if this is, again, not happening to me, but happening for me? How can I use this and make necessary pivots and changes? And also, I just think, your reward is going to be in proportion to the risk. That's just what you tend to find out. So little risk, little reward. Bigger risks is when you typically come with bigger rewards. And I think that's just part of the entrepreneurial journey, is being willing to make calculated risks, right? Not callous, non thought out risks, but calculated risks. That's when you're going to get the biggest rewards.
Absolutely. And I think most fears are overblown when it comes to this type of stuff in business. Like, this isn't gambling. You're not throwing away everything by trying something new or making a change. You can always go back. If you're ever unsure, do the mental exercise of like, take it to the worst case, like realistic worst case. Don't make up a zombie apocalypse if you make a price change. But you make a price change, nobody buys anymore. Okay, what's the worst case?
You go back to the other price.
Yeah, and then just to make yourself feel better, just journal out, what would I do to like minimize the damage control, to come back, and stop the bleeding. What would I do? And then once you've done that exercise, you realize, oh, it's actually not that much to worry about. Like, let's give it a shot. So I think there's something there. A big example of this, I think, is again, Apple, Steve Jobs. The iPod, if you're old enough to know what the heck an iPod was, that changed music, right? Because we all bought physical CDs. But then Apple's like, we're going to go digital. And there were MP3 players, but there was no good ecosystem. Like, we're going to make the music player, the music store, and the music software so that it's seamless for people to find and buy and download and listen to their music on the go in this little thing called an iPod. And it blew up and made Apple millions and billions of dollars. And they're like, this is their next great product. It's not a computer. It was innovative. Like, wow, this is out of the box. And then Apple goes and makes the iPhone. And there's a weird couple of years where people are like, do I really need an iPod if I have an iPhone? Because that plays music, and it's my phone, and it takes pictures. And all of a sudden, like, nobody buys iPods anymore. No. And like,
Can
they
you plug in an
cannibalized.
iPod?
I don't know. Maybe, probably. But like, how gutsy is that to cannibalize your absolute best-selling revolutionary product that was already out of the box, that was different than everything else you're doing with it? And of course, we all know the iPhone was a good move, but it's like, how they're just asking the question, how could it be better? And like, whatever, let's try it. So I love it. I love not playing it safe. And it just goes back to, again, creating space to get creative, come up with a new idea, playing the long game, reading books to give you new ideas to try. If you spend time with high performers, spend time with your top customers, you have new ideas to then prune your offers and not play it safe. Like, they all go together. This is all out of the box thinking. If you're just thinking linearly, like, I'll just work a little harder and maybe make a little bit more money. It's not easy. We're not telling you this is easy, but we're just saying these are 7 mental shifts that Shay and I are still doing. Like, we've done, that's how we've gotten successful, and we still are trying to do these shifts. Like, we're still trying to, like, everything is an iteration. I'm in like my 3rd evolution of business. I don't know what version Shay's in. She's been doing it since she was a kid on the playground hustling for Freezy Pops.
Friendship bracelets.
Yeah, friendship bracelets. So she's got many more years on it than me than I do. But it's an ongoing battle to, like, just think differently. Because if you don't think differently, you won't do differently. And if you don't do differently, you'll get the same results, which makes sense.
Well, and just to kind of tie it into, like, a lot of this has implication for revenue, but it also has a lot of implication for just building a life that you actually love. I mean, a lot of the risks that you and I have taken may have had less to do with products or services. They may have had more to do with building a business that served the life that we wanted. So I remember when you dropped down from, 3 content pieces a week to 2 content pieces a week, 2 content pieces a week to 1 content piece a week. It was the risk for us might have been saying, we're not going to check email on the weekends. I'm going to have a permanent autoresponder that says I'm only in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 6. Like, that's pretty risky. I think a lot of the risks that we took had more to do with, like, just drawing the line in the sand. This is the way that we want work to feel and life to function. These are where we're drawing the boundary lines. And it was risky, but it actually really ended up being for our benefit because it made us work smarter. I mean, there's so much strategy behind limitations. But I think don't apply not playing it safe only to your products and services and business development strategy. Like, also apply it to taking the risk of doing business differently on your terms, being willing to test it, and not just ask yourself, well, what's the worst that could happen, but ask yourself, what's the best that could happen? What if it goes really well? What if it totally works, instead of just like, what if this doesn't work? But the challenge, the encouragement there is just apply this also to life and how you're constructing the business, not just the products and services, inside of the business.
Love it. Mic drop. Thank you, babe. It was amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you walk away with at least one mental shift you're going to apply. And if you are, drop it in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. Which of the 7 you're like, that's the one I need to really lean into in this season right now? Even if you forget the other 6, just pick one. And please do check out the Family Goals Podcast at familygoalspodcast.com or YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you like to consume content there. Check it out if you have a family, want to think about having a family, and want to hear how 2 entrepreneurs think about raising kids, marriage, work, money, family culture, all of that. We are sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly of it, and it's a lot of fun, and we'd love to see you. Check it out, and of course, if you want to enter to win the $2,000 family vacation giveaway, you've got about 4 days to do that. You have till Friday at the end of this week, and if you missed it, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm sure we'll do another giveaway soon, but we're trying to put out as much helpful content for you, for your business and your life. Shay, thanks for hanging out with me today. It was a pleasure to see you.
You're going to make it home for dinner on time, right?
Yeah, I got to go pick up our other kid, and then I will be home. This is real life talking. All right, friends, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you on another episode real soon.